empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Monday night. We are getting close to spring ball. Winter conditioning is wrapping up for the boys, and it's about go time. About to be real football time. Knock some of the rust off next week. We had some great information dropped by both Bill the Bank Green and Nevada Buck today, talking about recruiting, talking about some of the coaching staff stuff, some of the off-season scouting that happens in February. I've been in those meetings where they break down kind of what went right, kind of what went wrong. How are we going to fix it? Who can we call to fix it? What things can we add and install for spring ball? This is the time to tinker under the hood, so to speak, of your program. So it's going to be really interesting to see what changes, what percentages we run, certain defenses, offenses, what the new quarterback's like. This is going to be a great time for the great experiment that is football in the spring. So we're going to dive into that. But first, as always, we appreciate you guys. We're so thankful for you guys. The site is growing. We had a bunch of new subscribers sign up to BuckEyeScoop.com. So thank you guys. You guys are starting to get that itch. It is spring ball season. It is time to get that info flowing. Recruits are coming to town. Coaches are going to be hitting the road in May. All kinds of good stuff coming. So you want to get on BuckEyeScoop.com, the #1 Ohio State community by far for inside information. That is what we push. That is what we work for. And we're going to have a bunch of new stuff coming the rest of the week. So stay tuned to get on BuckEyeScoop.com. Appreciate you guys. If you guys are in the chat already, fire up some questions. Shout out where you guys are from. And let me know who needs to break out this spring. There's a lot of big candidates. Anytime there's a QB Derby, obviously that's the easy one to pick. But I want to hear who you guys want to see break out this spring. That being said, bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you today?
Doing great, man. It feels like spring football is almost already here, and can't wait. The board's popping, things are exciting. This is a great time of the year, man. It's go time for sure.
Yeah, and you had a really comprehensive nugget up today, talking a little bit about how the staff is evaluating themselves, evaluating the personnel, evaluating how they do business, how they call a game. Obviously, with the big move of Brian Hartline becoming the primary play caller, that is a huge adjustment for the program. Ryan Day's been the primary guy since 2019. Or 18, since he got here 17 really. Going all the way back to the olden days of JT. But yeah, I think that guys that have been on staffs in February, really January, I mean, it kind of starts in January, but like when you have that little window between signing day, the second signing day, which is the lesser signing day, and spring ball, there's a lot of reflection, a lot of evaluation, a lot of calling your friends that you've made in the NFL, your friends that you've made along the way in coaching, people that you've clinicked with, people that you've just ran into on the road, to kind of discuss, what'd you like, what didn't you like. This is a time where coaches reach out to their mentors to see how they can fix what's going on. You kind of get some sometimes harsh feedback, but a lot of constructive criticism on how to run the program better, how to do things better. Talk a little bit about what you've heard. You had some really good stuff today, just in regards to what the coaching staff and Ryan Day are doing to improve Ohio State's football program.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is just, first of all, I've been fascinated for years by the use of analytics in sports. Analytics, primarily, started, in depth with baseball, and was documented really well in the book, and then the terrific movie Moneyball. But in football, analytics is really, it's a convenient way for these guys to take a look at their team and see how they're doing compared to the other power schools, compared to other successful schools on offense, on defense, how they're doing on down and distance, how predictable they are, even down to how frequently or infrequently they rotate players, when they rotate players. And, we did kind of a little thing, I'll tease a little bit about it, but talking about, Ohio State's tendencies to stay away from going under center, a lot more than other teams. And when you think about that, it kind of has, a lot of implications for Ohio State from an offensive standpoint. Why are they choosing to be in shotgun, 27% more of the time than other top 40 schools? And what does that mean? What does that mean to the blocking guys on the interior? What does that mean in terms of how they're attacking short yardage? Um, like I said, there's just a number of things that are kind of drawn off of it. And I just, like I said, the analytics part of football has always been something that's been fascinating to me. And Ohio State has really been embracing that as of late, trying to cross-reference the analytics with feedback they're getting from other people that are they're scouting them, and then the interior self-scouting that they're doing of themselves to see what they can do to improve things. So no, kind of a little deep dive on analytics for Ohio State football today at BuckeyesScoop.com. And if you're a member, go, and if you're not, sign up and check it out. I thought it was interesting, and hopefully people will as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes in sports over the last 20 years is just how analytics has driven sports leagues to do certain things. Obviously, you see the evolution of the NBA with 3-pointers. You see college football. Something that I know you've always been super aggressive on is going for it on fourth down, not punting. Obviously, the extreme is the coach. He's a low-level college coach. He used to be a high school coach who never punted, an onside kicked every time. That's like the extreme of the analytics. But yeah, I think that it's always fascinating to see how much data we get. What do we do with it? These kids all wear GPSs now that monitor their speed. So you can kind of see who's loafing. You can see who's giving max effort. Like when you see these kids working out now, they wear these things called Zephyrs, which they kind of look like sports bras, which is weird. But these guys, they wear them all and they track their how much they've ran, their total distance, their top speeds, how many times they decelerated, which is essentially like what they call a loaf, which is a negative thing. So it's really interesting to see how they can track everything, and I think it's only going to get even more futuristic to the point where with the GPSs you can monitor the plays that work. You can see if guys cut their routes off short. It's going to be it's kind of like the advancement of AI and artificial intelligence will be able to say what are our best routes, what are our worst routes, what are the routes that kids run the least accurately, what are the plays where the quarterback just doesn't know where to go, what he's doing, least proficient. It's going to be fascinating to see how this stuff continues to move, because I think that you're going to see more throwing, you're going to see more going for it on fourth down. I think that the reason why the throwing game is so prevalent in football, obviously, networks and leagues want to see a lot of points. It's just because, when you throw the ball, I mean, the odds of either getting a catch or getting some sort of, an interference, a holding call, an illegal touching, there's all these penalties now that didn't used to exist when receivers used to be able to get mugged. And that's why I think the prevalence of throwing teams is just so it's so grand at this point. You watch Pat Mahomes, you watch the Chiefs, you watch Ohio State, Ryan Day, you watch Lincoln Riley and USC. Throwing is where it's at, and I think that that's going to be how the game's going to move forward. Nevada, we're about 9 days out from spring ball. Conditioning is wrapping up. 3-4 more workouts left in the week. What are you the most excited about as we dig into spring football starting next Wednesday? They're going to have some workouts with notepads. And honestly, I'm not sure how much they'll reveal. We'll have our spies in there checking to see who's lining up where. But what are you most excited about as we start the 2023 spring ball season?
Well, before I forget, let me circle back on one other thing on the analytics, and so just to kind of springboard off what you were saying. They've now got devices that can measure like the energy output of players, and so the potential application is you like shoot the laser at the opposing players and you see who's tiring, or who's which defensive back is not able to push off with full confidence off his right leg or whatever it is, and they're going to start attacking that. And I mean that's happening, man. I'm telling you, that sounds like science fiction or something like that, but that is absolutely happening. And to your point about running and passing, running is almost becoming the way of the 2-point shot. Passing is so overpowered for all the reasons that you said, especially in the NFL, where pass interference penalties are point of the foul and not a 15-yard penalty. I mean, I don't know why teams just don't go down and throw 4 times deep every time, because you'll get a pass interference call eventually on one of those plays, and you're going to move the ball down the field. So, yeah, no, that's really something else. But I digress. We could talk about analytics all day, and I'd just be riveted. I love the integration of analytics and math into sports in general and football in particular. But no, in terms of who I'm looking forward to yeah, I mean the offensive line rotations. We say it a lot, but the offensive line rotations they're going to tell us a lot about what Justin Fry is thinking, and I think that I want to kind of get ahead of Justin Fry because I think he's relatively new to Ohio State. I'm not really sure I've got a handle in terms of what what he's thinking, but we'll know a lot by how he lines up with these guys and how what his approach is to rebuilding this offensive line with the pieces that he has. And to me, every practice is going to be interesting just for that reason to watch. Who's he lining up with the ones? Who's he lining up with the twos? Which groups are the most effective? How are they doing the shuffling on that? I think the offensive line is going to be terrific, but I want to see who those first 5 guys are going to be because I think it literally could be any one of 8 or 9 or 10 names, and maybe even more than that. There could be somebody come out completely out of nowhere and come in and be a contributor on the offensive line. I think it's that open of a competition this year, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that we learned from 2 years ago is that even we might leave spring and have a good handle and be like, hey, it's Zen and it's, Donnie and it's Carson Hinsman or whoever and Matt and it's Josh Fryer. And then we might get into camp and that might all switch around, because in camp, it wasn't until, 4 or 5 days into camp where all of a sudden they moved DeWand up to being the starting right tackle and they moved Thayer into guard. And Thayer never played guard at all, ever. Not in the spring, not in the first few days of camp. And then they just made the executive decision to put DeWand there. And I think part of that was to keep Ryan Jacoby from transferring because, you got to remember Ryan Jacoby transferred after the start of fall camp, which is the latest transfer I think we've ever had since the portal's become a thing. He went on to Pitt, and he ended up starting a game at Pitt that same season where he started training camp at Ohio State. That's almost like an NFL style. You're cut one week and you're starting for another team the next week type move. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see, does Donnie play tackle at all? Does he stick at left guard? Do you put Matt at center? I mean, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of uncertainty, at the tackle spots. And I think the tackles will be fine, whether it's Zen, whether it's Donnie at left tackle, if they put Josh Fryer at left tackle. Like I said, gun to my head, I'm putting Donnie at left and I'm putting Josh Fryer at right. And I think that's your best pass blocking combination. But, it's going to be a big spring for Zen. It's going to be a big spring for a lot of these guys. I think that we have more inside guys than outside guys just because at tackle we've lost guys to the draft. When you lose, Ryan Jacoby transfers out and then Nick Petit-Frere goes pro and then Paris and DeWand both go pro. That's just kind of what happens. So, but I think that we have guys that can do it. I think that we have skill. And I think that, if you're creative, you can always help tackles out. Like that's the thing that I learned as I became a coach, working for Urban. There's different ways that you can kind of help a tackle, or not kind of completely help a tackle, where you take him out of those one-on-ones where he's against a guy that might be better than he is. You can really make that guy's life a lot harder if you mix your protections up. And I know I've harped on that in past shows, but again, I go back to the Kansas City Chiefs and the masterful job they did in pass protection between the players just playing great against the Eagles, incredible pass rush, and Andy Reid calling just an array of different pass protections so that it was never just a straight rush versus a straight tackle vertical setting. There was always guys pulling. There was always help on the edge with fullbacks and tight ends and running backs and motion. I mean, there's a million things you can do to confuse a pass rusher. And if Brian Hartline wants to be really good, he's going to implement a lot of those. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Nevada, defensively, we talk a lot about the new secondary, some of these new guys. What 2 guys are you the most excited for as we head into spring ball? I think that, obviously Sonny and Kai are 2 guys that everyone wants to see, but rank maybe your top 3 guys in terms of you can't wait to see and hear what they do during spring football.
Well, I want to see the 2 transfers. I want to see, the freshman All-American from Ole Miss, Eguson, and I want to see Jahad Carter. I want to see how good these guys are. I mean, they look. Everybody looks good when they look on the transfer portal, and we're like, wow, this guy's better than what we have, and this guy will be an upgrade to the room. But I want to see it because I really believe it's going to happen. I really believe those guys can be. But the other guys we've seen, we have an idea. At least we've got some sort of a baseline of experience in terms of evaluating them. But these two guys, we really don't have any idea. I mean, they could be way better than what we had, and they could be an immediate, impact type of guys, or they might not be as good as we thought. And I think we're gonna have a close eye on them to see where they're lining them up, how they're playing, and when they're out there, how well they're doing. Because, like I said, we've had these two guys kind of thrust upon us, and could be difference makers for an OSU defense that's poised to have a big year. But these two guys could take it to even better heights. So definitely going to be keeping a close eye on both of them.
Yeah, I think Davison Igbenison is going to be the guy that everybody wants to watch. Can he be a true number one corner? A lot of questions in the chat about the poorness of our corners last year. I think that's something that as we work forward in spring ball and these guys get work versus Jaden Ballard and Carnell Tate and the Rogers brothers and some of these kids that are going to be grinding against some of these corners. I think it's going to be a great time to see what are these guys made of. Have they taken a step? Has that room calmed down a little bit? Because at the end of the year, that cornerbacks room was kind of a bubbling cauldron between the players, the coaches. There was a lot of animosity. Obviously we had J.K. Johnson transfer out, so it was really interesting to see how that room kind of fizzled towards the end of the season, and it's going to be interesting to see what is the dynamic with a freshman All-American from Ole Miss coming in and potentially taking one of their spots. I think it'll make Jordan Hancock heal up a little bit quicker. He's been injured for basically 2 years, and we've gotten almost zero production out of a kid that we were really counting on. So, when all of a sudden a guy comes in and potentially takes your spot, guys, they stay in the training room a little bit longer. They stretch out a little bit longer. They hydrate a little bit better. They're a little bit less susceptible for pulls when all of a sudden a dog shows up and a dog's trying to take you your seat on the throne. So I think that'll be fascinating just because I think that I love competition. I think competition is healthy. I think that something that I wish that we had more of on the teams I was on is more competition at more spots, because I think there's some guys that were complacent that were starters, and we frankly didn't have guys behind them that could push them and take their spots. So guys got complacent because they were satisfied with being the tallest midget. And I don't think that that's the appropriate thing. And that's the beauty of the transfer portal, is that these kids could never get complacent, because Ryan Day and these coaches, man, they're out trying to improve that roster every year in the portal when some of these high-level kids enter, either from bigger schools or even from smaller schools. Like there's Matt kids. Davison's the guy that didn't have an Ohio State offer coming out of New Jersey, ended up at Ole Miss, but after a year decides, to enter the portal, and he gets Ohio State and he gets Bama and Georgia. He gets all the offers that he really wanted coming out of high school. So that's always a fascinating dynamic now with the portal. Got a question? Go ahead.
Mr. Barton, before we get to questions, when you watch his highlight film, Davison and Biggest, how did he not get an Ohio State offer? Do you see how explosive that guy was? He was unbelievable. I don't put it on right now. I don't pretend to be like Joe evaluator on the video, but I can see that. You see a guy that just breaks away on both sides of the ball, just making plays all over. I don't understand how that wouldn't be a guy that Ohio State would want to give a long look to.
Well, here he is returning a punt. The first thing I notice is when I watch these highlight films, a lot of them are 4 minutes long. His is almost 12 minutes long. Most of these are 3 minutes, 2.5, 4, 8. But he's got a 12-minute long highlight tape. So this is a year ago, basically, when he was a senior in high school. Obviously played his freshman year at Ole Miss, but this is readily available. And you see, when he gets the ball, and this is Jersey, this isn't Georgia football, but this is still good football. But, nobody touches him. And when he catches the ball, man, he's going the other way. Here he is. I believe he's playing, and they put him at tailback. When he splits these guys, man, he's gone. I do like the yellow shoes, though, because it makes it real easy to find him on the highlight tapes. But, yeah, I love guys that were really good running backs that end up being corners, because when they get the ball, they're looking to score. It's kind of like their mentality takes over from being a high school running back, and they know that once you go over to the dark side and you're a defensive player, the only way you're getting to the zone is if you get a pick six. So when he catches it, man, he's trying to take that thing back to the crib, which I love. And again, he gets his hands on a lot of balls. Here, He's playing safety, which if you're a DB and you're playing high school football, I think you put your best guy at free safety just because, if you put him at corner, the odds that he's ever going to get his hand on the ball are about 0 in high school. But at free safety, he can impact the game much more. College is different, obviously, because you're dealing with college level quarterbacks and receivers. But in high school, man, when you put a kid like this at corner, man, he's going to have a boring day because he's basically going to be standing over a receiver that they're never even going to try to throw the ball to. But yeah, you see the breakaway speed, the jets. Again, and his dream school was Ohio State, which is kind of the neat thing about the portal is that, we misevaluated the kid. We didn't offer him. And he goes to Ole Miss. He's a freshman All-American, balls out, hits the portal. Then we offer him. Then he gets to come back to his dream school. So that's kind of the cool part about the portal. I know people hate the transfer portal and they hate that. But, if a kid really wants to bet on himself and he wants to, get to Ohio State eventually, he can go elsewhere, including an SEC school like Ole Miss, and go, be that guy. And he was for that 1 year, and then he opened it up, and Ohio State came calling after we were a little low in the corners, especially after J.K. Disappeared. But I think you watch his speed, you watch his tape, like what's not to like? You like him in the return game, which is something that the returns in college are kind of basically like a done deal now, where you have you've got guys that are, basically sky punting and fair catching. So I don't think we need him in the return game in the college game. But in high school, you see the return ability. You see him make tackles in the open field. Again, you see him at running back, dusting guys. Like once he splits 2 defenders, he's gone. So again, I love seeing the long speed. I love seeing the burst. This is a kid that is going to make a huge impact for us. At probably our biggest position of need, other than maybe offensive tackle. Like cornerback is something that people weren't satisfied with. People were upset about the number of long plays we gave up. And this is a kid here. They put him out at receiver. They probably need one here. They throw it up to him, gets behind him, tracks the ball. So you love the guy that's got the versatility and the ball skills to basically play everywhere. I mean, he's played about 5 different positions so far on this tape, and he can play nickel corner. He can play free. He can play running back, receiver, punt returner. Obviously, they've put him back there. So I love the kid's tape. We're going to take a couple questions. Paul, this is a great question. How do they divide up the players on the Scarlet and Gray teams for the Spring Bowl? So this has changed since Urban came in and since Ryan Day has taken over. When I was playing back in the olden days, we used to actually do a draft where you would open up by position. So if you say, hey, we're going to go quarterbacks, and someone takes, the Scarlet takes Troy Smith, Gray takes Justin Zwick, Scarlet takes Todd Beckman, Gray takes Rob Schoenoff, or whoever the backup is. And you would go position by position and open up each spot. And in that, it was always kind of tough because it wasn't as intuitive as you'd think, because you think, oh, I want to take Troy Smith and I want to take Beanie Wells and Pittman and that kind of thing. But the problem is that a lot of those guys are playing for like one drive or for one quarter. So you have to factor in how long are they actually going to play in the game. It's kind of like a preseason NFL game. But now it's basically one team, like say the Scarlet team will have the first team offense and the second team defense, and then the Gray team will have the second team offense and the first team defense. So it's a lot more simple doing it that way. Or you'll just have like offense on one side, defense on the other. They've tried a bunch of different variations because they want to try to get some good on good work early in the game. Like the thing that they try to avoid is having, like a walk-on cornerback going against Garrett Wilson or going against Chris Olave and just getting slaughtered, in front of everybody, because that doesn't really help you get an evaluation. It doesn't really help anybody when it's some just terrible matchup. Like we had a walk-on named Frank Kanga, and he was actually our starting H-back, the 1 year that I was on the Scarlet team with Tom Herman as the head coach. And, it's not that nobody wants to see that, but it just makes it hard to run the full offense when you have to put guys at positions they've never really practiced because of depth and because of guys being held out because of injuries. So I think anymore it's just turning into like kind of offense versus defense. So the spring game has been kind of destroyed and watered down. It was much better when I played just because we actually used to play a full 4 quarters and it wasn't like a running clock for the whole second half. Now, the spring game, it's done. They do usually a first half, but then the second half is like a running clock of 2 10-minute quarters. So you look up in 20 minutes and the entire game's gone. So, but yeah, that's how they do the selecting. The draft used to be pretty strategic, and now it's just kind of a thrown together thing because they feel like they have to do it to fill the stadium up.
Now, Kirk, when you played, did they ever do like winners get steak and losers get hot dogs, or winners have to walk back to the whack or losers walk and winners ride the bus or something? I mean, what were the incentives when you played in the spring game?
I think Urban, Trust started the losers have to walk back thing. We used to have a scrimmage called the Jersey scrimmage, which was literally the week before the spring game. That was a closed scrimmage, no media. And that was like the real spring game because that was like 1-0 versus 1D. Nobody's held out. Everybody's doing the whole scrimmage. You're getting 50 plays in a player. And the loser of that, because that was offense versus defense, the defense had like a scoring system where if they got like a sack, it was like 3 points. If they got, if they stopped them on 4 downs, they'd get a point. So there's like kind of this wacky scoring system where it wasn't just touchdowns and field goals. But the loser had to walk back. So, you'd have to be in full gear and cleats, and you'd have to walk from, the horseshoe, because we would always do our big scrimmages in the horseshoe just because Trust wanted guys to get used to being in that building, and you'd have to walk back. And, it's not a long walk, but, when you're in pads and ankles taped and shoulder pads, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but you kind of like it because it reinforces, just why you want to win. You want to ride the bus back, you want to get back early, shower, get out of the building, as opposed to the guys that have to, it's kind of embarrassing to walk back when you're in full gear, carrying your helmet, walking across, Woody Hayes and Olentangy River Road just because you lost. And most people didn't understand why guys would be walking back from Ohio Stadium, but I liked it. Urban, he started making the teams that lost the spring game have to clean up Buckeye Grove, where they'd have to mulch and weed and do that kind of thing. Like I won in 2012, so I didn't have to do it. The grade team had to go do it. But I like little things like that. Like Urban was real big on winner loser day, where it's like the winners would get to eat, they get Gatorades and then get like a good food, and then like the losers would get like water out of a hose and cold hot dogs or whatever for dinner. Like he loved to kind of reinforce like that you need to win. Like this isn't just some, if we're keeping score, you need to want to win, because it's just kind of ingrained that mindset that winning is important, which I think it is. And that's something that I think that's lost in society and with young kids today, is I think kids just don't think that it's important to win at everything. But Urban always had his little reinforcement measures, and I loved that. Davis's film is still going. It's like amazing. But let's see what other questions we got. We got some good questions in here tonight. Oh my gosh. I think that this is an interesting one. So Chris asked, do you think the new quarterback will run the ball more this year in Nevada? What are your thoughts on that question?
I think they will. I think Ryan Day found a little something, and I keep hearing that he may have kind of changed his position, because his position look, when we heard C.J. Stroud saying I wasn't brought here to be a running back. I ain't no running back. The guys carry the ball, blah, 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 blah. That was Ryan Day saying that to him. That was Ryan Day's pitch to C.J. Stroud. So I think Ryan Day has kind of modified his position on this and is kind of seeing the light a little bit and seeing some of the benefits of a running quarterback. And, look, when you have a Devin Brown and then look at who they recruited, even though he's kind of a placeholder in 2023 and the forgotten man in terms of Lincoln Kleinholz. I mean, Lincoln is absolutely an athletic guy, an absolute runner, and Devin Brown is 100% an athletic guy and a runner. So I think he's kind of modifying his view as to what he's looking for. I think he's kind of recognizing some of the pressures that a running quarterback can put on the defense. And, if you just go, and I have this discussion with my kids all the time, because they're funny, because they're kind of a traditionalist and I'm more the running quarterback guy. But, the NFL now has switched. It's now the majority of NFL starting quarterbacks right now would identify as definitely running. And that is an absolute huge change from even 5 years ago, where if you were considered a running quarterback, it was almost just. I'm thinking about Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor, back in the day was such a unicorn that they had to put him out there at the quarterback position, but they eventually moved into wide receiver. And in today's football, he'd be a starting quarterback for any one of 5 teams, and that's how much football has changed just in the last 10 years. And so that was a long answer to a short question, but yeah, I think Dave will run the quarterback more this year and be happy about it.
Well, I think that the reason why we've seen the development of the running quarterback is also due to the fact that it's what we mentioned earlier. The game it's a passing league now. So when you drop back to pass, you've got obviously the receivers have never been more skilled. They've never been more diverse with their ability to get separation. The rules have never been more skewed towards offensive players than they are right now. And what's the next layer that you can do to add to the passing game? Have a quarterback that can scramble and make it even harder to defend. Because it's already hard enough to defend the modern passing game with how athletic and how sophisticated the passing schemes are, on top of just the insane rules. Like I said, the illegal contact after 5 yards, holding, defensive pass interference being a spot foul. Well, how can you make it even harder? Well, make the quarterback able to run, or get a guy that can run, or will take off and slide and get 7 yards and make it 2nd and 3. That's like the next layer, because I think that the value of the running quarterback has gone up as the value of the traditional running game and running back has gone down. So you see guys like Pat Mahomes, who obviously is a fantastic thrower, but he'll take off and scramble. And when they need it and he wants to break someone's back, and they're in perfect man coverage across the board, and there's 30 yards of space in front of him, he takes off and goes. Like, look at CJ Stroud. Like, if our quarterback or if our kicker can kick that 50-yard field goal, we win the national title, all because CJ took off and ran. There was nobody open on that play. Like, I broke that play down. I've got that video uploaded. There's no separation between any of our receivers and any of our DBs. And then there's just this massive amount of space in the middle of the field. It's all green AstroTurf. It's not grass or field turf. And CJ just takes off. And there's nothing you can do to defend that when you're Georgia. Because when you're off in man coverage, the spy gets caught up in the muck. CJ runs, splits a couple guys. And CJ is a good athlete. That changes the game. If we could get 10 yards on any of the next 3 plays we called, then we win the national title in all likelihood. So, yeah, I think that as the modern passing game has emerged, and I think like when you're a guy like Brian Hartline, like Brian, there's just no way in the world that we're going to run the ball more this year than we did last year with Brian Hartline calling the plays. He's a receiver guy. He's a passing game guy. He's going to lean on what he knows. I don't know how well he understands the running game, but I'd imagine not much, being a wide receiver, being a throw game guy. So he's going to lean on what he knows. And if I'm Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, if I'm Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, I'm like, look, these guys haven't earned anything. They're not CJ. They're not Justin Fields, where, you try to protect them and, keep their draft stock nice and high for athletes first and their agents and everyone that, kind of controls that now. And when you haven't earned anything, like, we got to run you and we got to just go win football games, because there's going to be a time where we're out at Notre Dame and we really need it, and we're going to have to go scramble for some yards, or we're out playing at Camp Randall at night and it's crazy and loud and nobody's open, and or the protection breaks down and you're going to have to go run and get that yardage. Or when you're up at the Big House, when we were at the Big House in 05 and 07, a long time ago, we won the game because we ran the ball, because Troy Smith scrambled and because Beanie Wells ran the ball. And against Michigan, I'm sorry, but like, running the ball is what beats those guys. If you win the rushing battle against Michigan, if Ohio State or Michigan wins the rushing battle over the last 20 games, I think it's like 19-1. Whoever has the highest rushing yards wins. So it's not like it's some sort of insanely complicated formula, despite what, people try to make it out to be. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these young guys do running the ball, especially because they're not going to be like sacred cows like CJ's kind of been towards the end of his career, where, Ryan preaches that, hey, we don't want you to get hit. And I know that's the big thing they use in recruiting. Like, they use it with Dylan Raiola. Hey, we want you to be nice and fresh and healthy and never get hit. And, we're going to take care of you, and we're not going to run you up in the A gap and get you hurt. And we want you to be nice and healthy for the NFL. But, this year, like they got to go win some real games. They've got the ninth hardest schedule in the country, according to Phil Steele. At Michigan, at Wisconsin, at Notre Dame. You got to go win some games. This isn't going to be all pretty and dazzling. Like there's going to be some grit to this team to get through that schedule and to get where they need to go. Nevada, that was a long one. You got any rebuttal to any of my comments?
No, no, I think what you said, which you said a lot of smart things, but the smartest thing you said in that whole thing was, those little 7 yard runs when all of a sudden you're facing a 2nd and 3 instead of a 2nd and 10. Um, that's the difference in the game. I mean, as limited as JT Barrett was against Michigan in all those years, he used to break their back running the ball. When he'd break contain, and all of a sudden he would, stumble with his bad legs and his bad back and his ankle, and he rumble for 35 yards or something like that. He'd break contain on the thing when Michigan was playing man-to-man defense, and it was those were just backbreakers. And the modern game's going to it, the NFL's going to it. Ohio State has been an outlier. I mean, we've said this before, but CJ Stroud rushed for 0 rushing touchdowns the last 2 seasons combined. And that is just an impossible stat. I mean, it placed him last of every quarterback, every starting quarterback in major college football for the past years. He was dead last. And I just found that just absolutely astounding, considering that his first play, I think, as a college football player, was like a 49-yard run for a touchdown. So you knew that it was not that he couldn't do it; it's just that he was told not to do it, or he wouldn't do it. So yeah, I think we're going to see more running this year, and I couldn't be more excited to see it. And again, it doesn't need to be. I mean, for McCord's not particularly fleet of foot, but I just want you to be willing. Take those yards, take those 5 yards, take those 6 yards, take those 7 yards, get us out of bad spots, and put a little pressure on the defense to know that, hey, if we go man to man and we rush 4 and he can squeeze through the line, boom, he's going to be gone for at least a first down. And I think Ohio State's going to embrace that, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing more backbreaking for a defense than when an offense is consistently ahead of schedule. And by ahead of schedule, I mean 2nd and 2. There's nothing worse than you give up 8 yards on first down. And basically, it's like, all right, we just gave up a first down, essentially, because you've got 2, 3 plays to get 2 yards. You're basically, modern college football, you're going to give that up. Yeah, I mean, CJ not having a rushing touchdown when, defenses have to defend Emeka, Marvin, Jackson, Olave, Garrett. It's almost insane. I get, you're throwing it to those guys, but with the coverage they got to play on those guys, there are wide open lanes constantly to run the ball, especially in the red zone. So, again, I think that that's going to be something where with these guys, they're going to need their grit. They're going to have to go take every yard. Every yard is going to be golden this year. This isn't going to be, a big cakewalk where we've got a returning quarterback and, all systems go. Like, this is going to be a fist fight. And again, our schedule is getting amped up this year. We don't have Michigan at home. We got to go to Wisconsin. We got to go to Notre Dame. And again, those, on paper, will be favored in likely all of those games, except for likely Michigan. But, with the ability and the talent we have, there's no reason we can't beat all those teams. Without question. I'm going to throw on some Raphael Green. He's a kid from Winton Woods. Monstrous kid. I believe he's 6'6", 325, 335. So this kid's got to lose a little bit of weight.
Kirk, you're losing everybody.
Oh, my bad. There we go. Yeah, I know. I was losing you
Kirk,
guys. My bad. Yeah,
you muted yourself for the past 5 minutes.
man, that was crazy. But it's funny. Some of these guys were reading my lips because they're seeing that I was telling the kid he had to lose weight. So, yeah, but no, yeah, it's funny. I've been muting it just because I've been getting all this extra audio. So I apologize, that guys. But yeah, I was just saying, these kids got to show up and they got to be in shape and ready to go. So, Nevada, we watched this film for a little bit. It seems a little heavy. Got to lose some weight. But your thoughts on this, Nevada? As I'm back now.
I think he's a kid that Ohio State really likes. I mean, Ohio State's really high on him, and I think they're going to be keeping a careful eye on him. But I would not be surprised at all to see him end up as a Buckeye. I know he's really high on the Buckeyes, and the Buckeyes really high on him, and he moves well for a big guy. And he can lose. You can stand to lose some weight, but he moves well. You can see it out there in the film. You can see it when you watch him play. He sticks out on film. He sticks out in person, and I think he's going to be a player that's an early offer for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that again, this is the kind of kid where it's kind of all up to him because he's gonna have to reshape his body. You can tell that he's only a sophomore here, and again, when I was a sophomore, I was playing JV, so it wasn't like it was some sort of this kid's already played varsity at that age, so he's ahead of where I was. But these kids got to put in the work. He's in a good program, Winton Woods, and camp season for guys like this is just absolutely huge because they're going to want to see how well can he move. Can he really play tackle? Does he have the foot speed to do it? Can he pass protect? Can he redirect and sit in front of guys? And that's what's critical, And again, this is a kid that I'd love to watch his full game tape just to see, how well he hangs in there. Because again, this is a highlight tape, and he's blocking a kid that looks like Mark Pantoni right there, who's about 5'9". So you don't get a ton out of that, splattering that kid, but. This is a kid that you're going to want to see at camp. You're going to want to see him go against the best defensive ends in the area or at the camp, and just see how he can hang in there. They do a lot of conditioning work. The beginning of camp, they call it the county fair, where they kind of have guys run around and do some circuits to see how competitive they are, see what kind of shape they're in. And I used to always tell kids, I'm like, make sure you run. When you're coming into these camps, like. If I was this kid, I'd go running every night. I'd put my iPod on and put my little AirPods in my ears and get running, because I'm telling you, it's just so critical for these guys to be able to have a good showing, make a good first impression with the coaches and the staff, because you don't want to show up and be the guy that falls out of a drill, or you pull a hamstring. We had a kid a couple years ago that was competing for a scholarship, and he showed up. He literally went on vacation for a week. Showed up to camp like fresh off of being at Myrtle Beach or Hilton Head or wherever he was for he was at Hilton Head for like 8 days or something crazy. Comes to camp, pulls a hamstring on the 40, and I knew the kid. I was really upset with him because I'm like, when you show up to this thing and you're fighting for an offer, it's kind of like your Super Bowl. I mean, you have to be in the best shape of your life. And again, I'm not trying to like give some sort of crazy speech, but like, dude, like you can't take vacation for 8 days and then go show up to a camp that's basically like a war for you to try to win your offer. So, never got an offer, kind of just went off into the wilderness, didn't have much of a college career, but it was a kid that the staff really liked. They were texting me, Mark Pantoni, it was Ed Warner at the time. They both really liked the kid. He was right on the verge of an offer. If he had a big day, they were going to offer him. And he pulled a hamstring right at the beginning of camp. So, again, these camps they're really important for kids like this. If you're a 5-star can't miss kid, the camps don't mean anything, so you probably already have your offer. But for a kid like this, who's like a fringe guy who might be a Buckeye, might not, this kid could go a bunch of different ways, just given his size, his talent, how hard he works to get his body right. And, I just think that this is a kid that's got a lot of upside. Again, when you're 6'6", you already kind of have 80% of it, but it's that last 20% that makes you either a Toledo Rocket or an Ohio State Buckeye at offensive tackle. So Nevada, any final things? What are we at? We're about 45. Any final things that you can you want to talk about? We talked about a lot. Talked about the analytics. Talked about the quarterback stuff. It looks like Joe Rudolph, who is one of my favorite coaches ever, is the new offensive line coach at Notre Dame. He took Harry Hiestan's job. He's coming from Virginia Tech. Rudy is a guy that was a graduate assistant for Jim Tressel when I was there, and then he was a strength coach for us with Flichter up until 2006, and then he coached at Nebraska. He was Wisconsin's offensive line coach for a long time under Paul Christ. He went to Virginia Tech this past year, and Marcus Freeman offered him the Notre Dame job. So great guy, really good coach. So happy for Rudy. He's going to be heading to Notre Dame with Marcus. Any final thoughts of that as we wrap this thing up?
No, just excited to see the early enrollee freshmen here in spring practice. Been getting some rave reviews about how they've been looking in the weight room, how they've kind of acclimated to strength and conditioning at Ohio State, and they think these guys are primed and ready. And as we talked about, we were talking about offensive line guys. A kid like Luke Montgomery may throw himself into the mix earlier than you think, and really make a run for things. And like I said, I think there's going to be some open battles this year in the spring. We'll be bringing you up play-by-play from BuckeyeScoop.com, but I wouldn't. I'm telling you, there's going to be some surprises this spring, particularly on the offensive line. I think there's going to be some names that we're not talking about that are going to throw themselves into the mix. We're going to go, wow, where did that guy come from? And I think that's going to happen, and I'm going to call that shot right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big opportunity for guys like Tigra, guys like Luke. It's open auditions at tackle, and it's going to come down to who are the best pass protectors. What's the best combination of pass protecting offensive tackles for this offense and for what Ryan Day likes to do? Again, I think Luke has a chance to play this year just because he's an athlete. He's a pass blocker. He can stay in front of guys. I think that's why they're putting Tigra out there. Tigra, the kid that we just watched, reminds me a lot of Tigra. I mean, Tigra was heavy a couple years ago. Didn't like his film. He's lost a lot of weight. He is really looking like he's lean and in good shape. Again, I saw him in person a few months ago, and he's lost a substantial amount of weight. Looks great, really. He looks like he could handle the edge. He's firmed up because, again, when you show up to Ohio State and you're heavy, they get that off you. Like you don't just get to gradually lose pound by pound. I mean, that weight comes off fast because they're going to cardio you to death. They're going to put you on that Stairmaster. They're going to put you on the bike. They're going to put you on the treadmill. And you're going to do it 6 days a week until they get you down to the weight that they want. We did it in 12 with a bunch of guys that were heavy. Guys were losing 25, 30 pounds. Some guys 40 pounds just because they had too much flub. We had to get their body fat down so they could be productive players. And it doesn't guarantee success. It doesn't guarantee that guys are going to be productive, but it at least gives us a chance to have something to work with and something to coach as opposed to just being, kind of vomit, which is something that, again, I give all the credit to Urban Meyer and to Mickey Marotti because they're the ones that brought that hard charging kind of, hey, this is going to be like Marine Corps boot camp until you decide you want to be in good shape. And then all of a sudden guys started to eat less and work out more. And it was less babysitting when it came to getting these guys to be in the right shape. So we're going to wrap this thing. Again, we appreciate you guys as always. This was another good show. Broke down some great film of Davidson Ubinison, a guy that we're really excited about. Broke down another tackle. BuckeyeScoop.com, we're going to be cranking like crazy. We appreciate you guys. As we are working along, getting some of this info, man, this is going to be a huge spring. Again, anytime there's a quarterback battle, you guys want to be in the know, and BuckeyeScoop.com is the place for you. We are big time in getting some of this information. Again, I think Callum McCord is going to be our day one starter for week one. Not sure what Devin Brown can do to beat him out at this point, but it'll be really interesting to see how they split the reps through spring. Is it a true competition or is it just a faux competition? I love the Dwayne Haskins and Joe Burrow competition. So I think it's going to be just fascinating to see if Ryan Day's learned anything from the Haskins-Burrow deal, where we basically gave Haskins the job after spring and Joe Burrow ended up heading off to LSU. Which, again, I think that was the correct call. Dwayne Haskins was a year younger than Joe Burrow. Had a fantastic year, his 1 year here, and then went pro. So you can't fault anybody for what happened in 2018. But as always, we appreciate you guys. Please click like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning into these shows. We're going to do these every night going forward. We enjoy having you guys on here. We love interacting. Thank you for the great questions, as always. Again, if you enjoy this content, BuckeyeScoop.com is our home. We're going to be there all night. I'm going to hop on the boards now, get on there for about an hour, get a little workout in, head to bed. But we appreciate you guys as always. So thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I will catch up with you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.